Hey, good evening. Thank you for coming out in tonight's voting session of the regular meeting of the Sumner County School Board. Before we begin, I'm going to open with a moment of silence, followed by a pledge to our flag. Feel free to join us if you'd like. Thank you. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I call to order the regular meeting June 17, 2025 of the Sumner County School Board. First item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, except for Mr. Evans.
Thank
He's
you.
on his way, he's stuck in traffic.
Gotcha. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the regular agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second. Any comments?
Sure.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to add something to our agenda, please.
Okay, what would you like to add to the agenda?
I'd like to add a discussion or action regarding the reinstatement of the SPED position at Westmoreland High School and allocate reserve funds to cover that position for the 2025-26 school year.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
And I would like to explain why, if the board will allow me to do so. Last year, we had one teacher and 3 assistants in this SPED classroom. And we had eight students total, and 3 of them always, you have to picture 3 of these students always need one-to-one adult care. So that means they always have to have an adult with them at all times, correct? And then this coming year, the proposal for this classroom is 1 teacher, 2 assistants, and 6 students. So they lost 2 students, but the key is why the parents are so upset is they still have these 3 students. That's kind of the kicker. There's 3 students that always require one-to-one adult supervision at all times. And what I've been told is within arm's reach, if Ms. Dan wants to correct me, but there has to be an adult with them at all times, what I've been told, within arm's reach. And like I said, there's 6 students, and 3 of them always need one-to-one adult care. And another kicker about these students, 3 of these students demand an adult with them at all times, and 2 of these students require a diaper change. And then you have to have an adult to help change their diapers. And 1 of these students require 2 adults to change their diapers. So what do you do with the other kids when you've got 2 out of 3 changing their diapers? So you can see there's there would be very short-handed. And so how would you teach the other 2 or 3 kids in the classroom? Well, I guess you would have 5 kids. So you'd have 1 person to be with 5 kids, and 2 of those would require adult supervision constantly. So you would see there's a problem. So I would pray and ask that y'all would at least talk about this situation. I'd ask that you allow one of the parents that's here tonight to at least talk about it. I'm not asking you, I'd love for you to vote for this and allow this to be on the agenda and get it approved, but please allow the parent to come speak to this situation. She can speak to it so much better than I can, and I ask you, I beg you, just to allow them to speak on this situation tonight. And let's vote to add this position back at Westmoreland High School.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Do you have any additional discussion, Mr. King?
Yeah, I'm just want to add to that. I've talked to a lot of parents on this. It was even on the news, by the way. And yeah, Mr. Lacey's right. There's 3 students that require adult supervision at all times. These are students that have a disability that is so severe and their cognitive ability is such that they don't understand, they may not even understand the danger of picking up a pencil and jamming it into their eye, or jamming it into another student's eye. Anything is possible. There's nothing beyond the realm of possibility with these 3 students. If an adult is not within an arm's reach to stop them, anything is possible. And so my concern is that this is a very serious liability situation. And it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when something happens due to a lack of supervision. Liability to me is screaming in this issue. And there's a right side and a wrong side to this. And I would like to be on the right side that ensures there's enough adult supervision to protect these kids. And so I'm in support of adding this to the agenda. In our policy manual, it says the school board has the supreme authority or complete authorization and authority over school positions. And so we have the power to change this and just to add this position back. To me, I'm hearing from parents, teachers, students, people that are close to the situation, they're in the classroom. And it's my understanding that the decision was made not based on experience in the classroom or witnessing the classroom, but based on numbers. And we heard about ratios. When you have a special needs class, ratios go out the window because you're dealing with what are the needs of the students. It's not about ratios. If you were to go across the district, you'd see many different CDC classrooms. They have different ratios, they fluctuate, and you would ask the question, why? And the question is because they have different needs. Students have different needs in those classrooms. But in this case, for some reason, that question is not being asked, and I think we need to revisit this. So I 100% support adding this to the agenda. I think it would go well for the board to reinstate that position. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I clarify? Last year, we had 8 students and 1 teacher, 3 assistants. This year, the proposal is 6 students, 1 teacher, 2 assistants. And like I said, 3 of those students need an adult with them all the time.
I have a motion to add this to the agenda. I have a second.
I want to add one more thing. So if, again, he was right about the students that require bathroom assistance. These students, some of them require two adults to go with that student, and that leaves the classroom without an aide. And then if you go with one of the students, there's 2 students in there that are very volatile and that could harm themselves or others. And again, that's why we need that third person in that classroom.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, Mr. Johnson, can we take a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Ms. Hayes.
No.
Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
Mr. Lancaster. Mr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. King. Mr. Hollis.
Yes.
Ms. Brady.
No.
Ms. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman Daniels.
No.
Motion carries 8-3.
So we've added that to the agenda. Can you share where in the agenda that's going to be added?
We will place it as item 3 under new business.
All right, perfect. Next item on the agenda is adoption of consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. Motion to approve. Motion to have a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is recognition and hearing of delegations. We'll start with the recognition of Lieutenant Chris Vines, Robert Rice, and Johnny Anderson.
Is that me?
Is that you? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johns? Mr. Rice? Mr. Anderson is not here. He is having a procedure tomorrow, so he won't be here tonight. Mr. Vines, Mr. Stores, and Nurse Kingery. Who all here? I would also like to ask our District 10 County Commissioner Ben Harris, his wife and daughter Holly, who are here, Ben is Mr. John's nephew. Would y'all please come up and join us? I'm actually blessed to be here, able to do this recognition. Mr. Johns and I attend the same church, so he's someone I've gotten to know, and I'm very thankful that the Lord has chosen to keep him here with us for a little longer. I would like for the following people to be recognized. Is Nurse Henry here? No? Well, Officer Jerry Soares, Officer Chris Vines, Assistant Principal Robert Rice, and his sorry. That's what they wrote for me. That's what they wrote for me. And Principal Becker is here, I think, as well. Would you like to come up and join us? So on April the 28th, custodian Robert Johns suffered a sudden cardiac arrest while on duty at Galton High School. Immediate response was critical to his survival, and Nurse Teresa Kingry, Officer Soares, Officer Vines, Assistant Principal Johnny Anderson, and Robert Rice acted swiftly and selflessly, providing life-saving assistance during his medical emergency. Their calm, professional, and heroic actions directly contributed to the survival and recovery of Mr. Johns. Their teamwork exemplifies the highest standards of public service, compassion, and readiness in times of crisis. We extend our deepest gratitude and highest commendation to Nurse Kingry, Officer Soares, Officer Vines, Assistant Principal Johnny Anderson, Robert Rice, for their quick thinking, bravery, and dedication to the well-being of others. Their actions serve as an inspiration to all and a reminder of the vital roles our healthcare and public safety professionals play in our community each day. Mr. Anderson did review all the camera footage from the date and the event, and I'd like to read some of the timeline here, if y'all don't mind. At 7:48, Mr. Rice alerts Mr. Anderson. 7:48, I'm going to put the seconds in there, 34 and then 44. Anderson goes into the closet, which is where Mr. Johns was. 7:49:21, Rice steps into the hall. 7:49:24, Anderson radio call for assistance. 7:49:30, Anderson yells for AED. 7:49:46, red bag was delivered to the closet. 7:49:50, SRO arrives. He called for EMS support from his radio. 7:50:06, Anderson yelled for defibrillator. 7:50:23, AED was delivered to the closet. 7:50:58, the nurse arrives. CPR and AED was initiated. 7:52, Sergeant Vines arrives. 7:54:05, the cafeteria emptied of students. 7:54:43, Mr. Vines gets ambo bag from the red bag. Ambu. It says ambu, but I think I don't know what that's supposed to be. 7:55:58, Vines gets pulse ox from the red bag. 7:56:20, the fire department arrives. 7:57:28, the patient moved out of the closet to the hallway. 8:01:05, the EMS arrives. 8:04:10, the EMS leaves with the patient. So I think that's a matter of about 15 to 16 minutes is kind of what I was calculating there, a little close. The staff at each school are very well trained, thank you, school board. But Robert's event shows how seriously Galton High School takes their training. We as Sumner County School Board want to thank each of you for your actions that day. Thank you. All of you.
Good job, man. That's you, Bill, sir.
All right. Next group of being recognized is the Gallatin High School Spotlight Award winners.
Can everybody come on up here? Y'all can go on up there and speak. That'll be fine. Go on and get in your positions. The Spotlight Awards are dedicated to supporting the talents, educational endeavors, and friendships of high school theater students in Tennessee to build a strong theater community. The Spotlight Awards are presented by the Tennessee Performing Arts Center in association with the Broadway League. The Spotlight Awards are similar to the Tony Awards, but for high school theater. They're an equivalent to a state championship. Gallatin High School Choir has participated in the Spotlight Awards program for 2 years. Out of 40 participating schools this year, Gallatin High School won the overall music award for their production of the Addams Family. And if you didn't see it, you missed it because it was great. In total, they received 13 nominations and recognitions and took home 6 awards at the ceremony held in May and performed a mashup of songs from the Addams Family on stage during the show. Awards won included Outstanding Music Direction, Outstanding Solo Performance by Olivia Barrett, Outstanding Dancer, Talon Mako, Outstanding Supporting Performer, Jamison Davis, which included a scholarship to the Broadway Dreams program for Jamison. He spent a week at Belmont learning from industry professionals. Outstanding Scene Partner, Julian Cannon, and Outstanding Musical. Other recognitions included Julian Cannon, semifinalist for Outstanding Lead Performer and Dance Scholarship recipient, Jamison Davis, Sierra Bugай, Talon Mako, Outstanding Lead Performer nominees. Talon Mako and Jamison Davis for All-Star Cast, Jade Calazo, I knew I was going to mess one of them up, and Lydia Ann Vasquez Marino, All-Star Crew. Congratulations to the cast of Addams Family and members of the production team, and I want to read those. There's a pretty good list here, but we're going to read them. Kennedy Crenshaw, Andy Garcia, Yana Cannon, Miss Holly Alexander, Mr. Tate Hansons for his construction class, Julian Cannon, Talon Mako, Sierra Bugay, Rogan Bates, Emily Bull, Jamison Davis, Jace Ritchie, Olivia Barrett, Kylie Walker, Keon Harris, Callie Beth Oldham, James Black, Zechariah White, Ella West, Lucy Blaylock, Savannah Rollins, Taryn Ray, Lee Sweat, Ben Abbott, Annalise Wirt, Gracie Moss, Angie Blanco, Alania Bransford, Aubrey Henderson, Hannah Spurlock, Jaden Rivers, Cadence Beal, Olivia Willard, Jade Calazio, Amelia Spalding, Lenny Vasquez, Lily Graham, Travis Simmons, Keaton Searcy, Jordan Cannon, Ashley Street, Destiny Jennings, and Lily Williams. I'd like to say also we have a bunch of talented high school students all over the county, all over this county. So we are fortunate, and I think I speak for the board, that we're so thankful to have all of them here in Sumner County. So thank y'all. Great job. Just keep at it. Look up.
All right, next item on the agenda, or I'm sorry, under recognition and hearing of delegations is recognition of Lucy Alegria of Gallatin High School.
All right, so some of our hardest working people in our schools and some of the most dedicated to students are those educators who serve our students in the fine arts. Tonight, the Sumner County Board of Education would like to recognize one of our finest music educators, Miss Lucy Alegria. As one of our choral music educators, Miss Alegria was the choir director at Beach High School from 2015 to 2025 and will be the new choir director at Gallatin High School beginning this fall. She earned her Bachelor's of Music Education from Tennessee Tech University in 2015. She serves on the board for the Middle Tennessee Vocal Association as the solo and ensemble chair, and is the Sumner County Secondary Choral Director's Professional Development Facilitator. This past spring, Ms. Alegria was recognized by the Tennessee Music Educators Association and received the TMEA 2025 Young Music Educators Award at their conference in Nashville. This award is given by nomination and represents someone who has earned the highest respect and admiration among colleagues in the music education field. In addition, Ms. Alegria also sings professionally, and last February she debuted and performed at Carnegie Hall as a member of the Nashville Symphonic Chorus, performing their signature piece, The World Beloved, a Bluegrass Mass, by composer Carol E. Barnett. And this past May, she performed with the same group along with the Nashville Symphony. They performed Symphony No. 8 by Gustav Mahler, Symphony of 1000, which is considered one of the greatest classical works of all time. And this was part of the farewell concert series for the long maestro Giancarlo Guerrero in his farewell concert series. And in this coming fall, Miss Alegria will be leading the inaugural season of the Sumner Community Chorus, which she founded to promote the choir experience to the local community. And everyone is invited to join and be a part and sing as a part of this ensemble. Her greatest support comes from her husband, Jacob Alegria, who is also one of our music teachers here in Sumner County, serving as one of the band directors at Beach High School, and my son is one of his students. So I asked Miss Alegria what is something that inspires her to teach, and she commented, having the opportunity to instill within students musical skill and also a lifelong passion for music that they will carry with them their whole lives. So it is with great privilege and honor that the Sumner County Board of Education on this day, June 17th, 2025, recognizes Miss Lucy Alegria for her dedication as a music educator to our students and our community. So please join me in congratulating Miss Alegria.
All right, before we complete the recognition and hearing of delegations, we did add a new item to our agenda tonight. Don't know if anyone signed up to speak, but if anyone would like to speak, I want to give them that opportunity really quickly.
off that parent that's here? Okay.
You could please just say your name and address. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Tina Stevenson from 798 Clark Hollow in Westmoreland.
Thank you.
I'm from Westmoreland High School, moved from Hamilton County in 2023. I am shocked by the no votes against my son and his peers' safety. The Supreme Court recently recognized families of disabled children in school districts. The Supreme Court lowered the standard for the burden of proof from proving gross misjudgment to instead a deliberate indifference. We share our needs and concerns, and we have felt ignored. We've been trying to get someone to have a real conversation since March. No one so far has come to our school to evaluate our needs and see what our concerns actually are. Deliberate indifference from our local, state, and federal government in regards to special needs individuals and their caretakers is discrimination. When it comes to education, we're struggling to sit by and watch this deliberate indifference while their needs are not being met and they are unsafe. These kids have an education plan that is not part of the curriculum. As a parent, my priority has to be Reagan and his well-being. God bless us with him, but this job is lifelong. Us parents are always thinking about the future, how we're going to cope as we age and still be able to care for them. They will always be fully dependent. We neglect ourselves and many life comforts because we care for them. They're the priority. Reagan is a behaviorally and medically complex, multi-handicapped student. He's nonverbal autistic, making him highly vulnerable. He has impulse control disorder. He may throw things, break things, run off, steal fruit from others. He has sensory processing disorder. He has pica, an impulse condition where he eats non-edibles. He stuffs his food and is a choking risk. He has idiopathic scoliosis and hypotonia that makes him a fall risk. He's still not fully potty trained. As a nonverbal 18-year-old male, because of liabilities, he will need 2 adults to help him in the bathroom and after accidents and changing his clothes. Imagine that he goes to the bathroom multiple times a day. These are some of the diagnoses and behaviors that require staff to be with him 100% of the school day according to his IEP. He can never be alone. He needs constant attentiveness and redirection. His IEP reads he must have a staff member within arm's reach, and every IEP goal requires him to have one-on-one support. In early March, when we learned of the staffing loss, we reached out. We received a few responses, but they were in regard to ratio. I won't go into the ratio again because that's been pretty well explained tonight. I know that the WHS staff will take great care of the 3 complex students, that includes mine, but do you realize this means that the CDC kids will not have their teacher available? I hope the county can see the ripple effect of neglect is going to be a high possibility simply because there's not enough staff. The liability will belong to Sumner County and not Westmoreland High School. Staffing our classroom by using a minimum ratio just won't work to maintain my child's safety and his peers. Why is the administration so intent to repeat the word ratio but ignore talking about our safety concerns? Where has been the due process of the county to evaluate our IEP and staff our classrooms accordingly? There's been no discussion of it. Sometimes kids can be grouped together with one teacher, but for my child and many others like him, they have a plan that cannot be grouped sharing that one teacher. This is for their safety once again. I'm simply requesting the staff member who was fired to be rehired in our classroom to restore us to 3 assistants. This staff member knows our kids, their communication, and their behaviors. Very few people are willing to do this job. Our teachers and assistants have the hardest job, as you can imagine, for the least pay. They love our kids and treat them as their own. Losing a staff member is like losing a piece of the puzzle, taking a mom out of the family. This brings harm to the child's emotions, education, and creates an unsafe environment. It also has brought down morale amongst staff and our families. In conclusion, I really can't believe that I'm having to fight for my child's safety, but we're begging this board and administration to please understand that Sumner County to please stop denying for our complex, multi-handicapped, multi-diagnosed children this staffing position, and please do it according to the IEP. Please don't remain deliberately indifferent. When we see heads shake at us and we hear the word no, we realize where our child is on that level of importance. Please don't ignore our safety concerns, and thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right, do we have any matters involving council? All right, reports from the director.
Yes, let me run real quickly. I emailed y'all a link to the most up-to-date athletic facilities. Hopefully monsoon season will stop, but everything is progressing. You know, it's always, if you track the others, you know, it takes a long time to get all the foundation stuff built, and then you drive by one day and the bleachers are up, because it takes very little time to, they're like giant erector sets, the bleachers go up pretty quickly. So we're in good shape. You know, the good thing about Station Camp is if you drive by that field, they're gonna put their sod, so they'll roll out. It's not like we're, you know, when we did Gallatin's a couple years ago, it was seeded, and that was really, it took until the 11th hour and a lot of water and sunshine to get that in place. But this should be much better. North Sumner is going well. If you get a chance to look at the very end of the video that I sent you, it's not an athletic facility project, but if you see at the end, you can see there's a huge difference between the fiberglass panels that were in there versus the glass. Very excited about that project. And I'm happy, if you watch that video, have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to explain that. I wanted to update on playgrounds. Just a reminder, at the commission last night, it came out several times about the $250,000. The $250,000 is in next year's budget capital. And so what we will do is, I would hope, you know, I would like in July to begin to get together with parents and families and people that are interested in talking about playgrounds. My only concern about starting that process in June is that's when, you know, between now and about mid-July, everybody's taking vacations and things like that. It's a little better to get together. We'll know our budget's passed, we'll have the money, and we can get rolling to get a report to bring back to y'all. So I would envision, you know, I'm speaking at the Special Ed Collaborative in August. Ms. Daniel and I are, and I look forward to including that in my presentation about the work that's already been done and what we're looking forward to doing in the future for accessibility to our playgrounds. A budget update. Last night at the commission, we had the Education Committee, Joint Education Budget Committee meeting about our budget. It passed unanimously in education, 1 no vote on the budget committee, so that will go to the full commission. That will be on June 30th, and that's what I wanted to just lay out for you, so you know what the stakes are for this. Is we have until September 1st to have a budget passed by state law. But if we don't have a budget passed by the end of June, what will happen is we will go on what's called continuation. So there will be no raises. We can spend 1/12 each month of what we spent the previous year. So that puts any new capital projects, any new raises, anything like that, it puts it on hold. We can operate the school system, but we have to operate on last year's budget basically, and only spending 1/12 of the dollars from last year's budget. It's a nightmare. I do want to say this, should we go on continuation, our employees, once we go off continuation, will be made whole. So if they get a raise, it will go retro. That would only affect our 12-month or 260-day employees, because teacher pay works. It starts in August because their contract runs August through May, and then they have a June and July check because we basically take a 10-month contract and divide by 12. So teachers don't get their raises until the August paycheck. Your principals and others that work 12 months, 260 days, they get their paycheck in July. Those contracts run current to that month because obviously it's the nature of working 12 months versus 10 months and dividing it by 12. So any raises would go on hold if we go on continuation. I don't anticipate, like, I feel good about where the county is. I think Commissioner Becker and Commissioner Schoaf have done a tremendous job. Mr. Long's done a great job. It was very helpful for us. They gave us revenue numbers, I think, in March from the county, which helped us get our budget together. And I feel like we're in a really good place in terms of our budget. You know, it was a really good conversation. The 1 no vote in budget was a no because they just didn't feel like they had enough time to look at everything and work through everything. So I wish that meeting was a little bit earlier and not not the 30th, but that's the way the calendar fell. If you've worked on the county side, it's also hard to cross the finish line because there's a lot of moving parts over there. So anyway, I know that they're working really hard to get that done. Commissioner Shove on budget, Commissioner Becker on education have done a great job. I wanted to talk a little bit along those lines about bonuses. So last month with budget, we passed the resolution for our teachers to receive a $2,000 bonus. That money comes to us in next year's budget. So right now, our plan is there's a lot of work that has to go in to get all those teachers' names to the state for that to be funded in next year's budget. Then we have to run that through payroll in the midst of a very quick turnaround from July and August. So we are hopeful to run, it will not be a part of the check on July 15th because we can't tap into that money until after July 1st in the new budget year. So we will run a special payroll. It'll probably be right around the 1st of August. So that's about the fastest we can get that turned around. Now, if our budget is delayed, then we can't do those $2,000 raises until our budget is approved. So if there is a delay in passing the budget, there will also be a delay in getting those $2,000 out. Now, summer scholars, in case you get a question, our summer programming that's going on right now is paid out of this year's budget. So we will roll a special payroll towards the end of July, 1st of August. We do this every year usually to pay our summer scholars workers. So it takes a few weeks because you're talking about a significant number of employees to make sure all the hours were worked, that we've got the right people, everything like that. It's just additional payrolls are cumbersome, and Ms. Brown's team does a tremendous job of making sure that that's accurate and correct and fast. So I just want to make you aware of those things. I don't anticipate us going on continuation this year, but just in case you do, if you get a question about it, that's kind of the reality of what we're looking at. But I'm very encouraged by the work of our team. I'm very thankful, as I shared with the commission last night, it's something for Sumner County to celebrate, is that in 2 years we've put a significant amount of money in pay for our employees, and that's something to really celebrate. Along with, I didn't get a chance to get to the slide because we got distracted and get back to it. If you look at our benefits, again, a 0% increase will be recommended that y'all vote on in August or September. Hopefully we'll be able to do the benefits holiday again, at least 1 month, hopefully 2. But anyway, that's also good news, along with our paid paternity and maternity leave, which I think is also a big deal. So that's the update that I have for you tonight, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I got
Mr. Lancaster?
So going back to the $2,000 bonus, because I don't know about everybody else, but I get a lot of questions on that. Definitely trying to tell people I'm not a subject matter expert, but I knew it had to be next fiscal year because it has to be in the state fiscal year. So we're thinking August on a special payroll run, right?
Mm-hmm.
It will be taxed, or like taxes will be withheld from it. Will it be done like a bonus?
So they put enough money in to cover. We've had these before from the state where they said you're going to get $1,000 or $2,000, and they put nothing extra. Like if we give something for teachers and we say it's going to be $1,000, we put enough in there to cover all the benefit costs so they actually get $1,000. In the past, sometimes with the state, they've given $1,000, but they haven't taken anything out. So we had to take out employees' contribution plus hours, and then it dropped to like $750, and that creates a lot of pain.
Okay.
They did put in this one enough to cover the state, like the employer side of the taxes and benefits. So what will come out will just be the regular employees' normal.
So it wouldn't be double withholding, like
Right,
gotcha,
right.
for the employers.
Right, so it won't be $2,000. I mean, it'll just be depending on their withholdings.
But you said if for some reason the county doesn't pass or gets delayed or whatever, that it wouldn't. Is that in our budget? I thought that was like a separate thing. I just didn't understand why that would be impacted.
So it's an amendment tonight. So if the county delays approving our original budget,
Okay.
then we can't amend the budget because it doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
So it would just, that amendment we would be waiting on the original budget so that the amendment could be posted.
Gotcha. So I guess I took that amendment as a 20, which does that make sense? It's a 25 amendment.
I think if the legislature had to do it all over again, they would have put the money in this year's budget. But it was in next year, so it doesn't go into effect until July 1.
I think that may answer all the questions I get, but probably not, but anyway.
Yeah, you can text me, email me.
I've got one quick question on the playgrounds. I know you'd mentioned during our last meeting that we were starting work, we had new equipment that we're putting in. We had some access ways that we were working on, and then we also had the playground, I believe at the pre-K. Has that been installed yet, or is that still in process?
We're waiting on it to be delivered at the
Okay,
pre-K.
gotcha.
And if you look at the pre-K, they're working on the asphalt. We're creating a bus entrance and exit going out the back. So if you drive around that way, you can see that. But they're waiting on the equipment, and I really want to see if the surface works well. It's kind of a game changer for doing it because it's significantly cheaper than what other surfaces have been.
And I also want to clarify that
More affordable.
that when we have the committee, the group, the presentation, the plan, whatever it is, to focus on all the inclusive playgrounds, we're not limiting ourselves to the $250,000 we set aside. That's just kind of a baseline that we set
Seed
aside
money.
for now, seed money. That's a good way to phrase it. The plan is to come back with an all-inclusive plan that would touch all the schools that need improvements in that area, correct?
That's correct. And I think what we would be looking at is if we have a plan that we can just start chipping away, it's going to be hard where construction prices are right now. But I think we go ahead and get our plan ready, and then we can, if you know what you've got, we can start looking for, in addition to the funds that we continue to put in, we can look for grants, we can look for donations from corporations. We just had last month a group in Portland, came to Portland East Middle, a big IT company, and they did tens of thousands of dollars of work at Portland East because they have a day where they give back. I think we have a reputation of doing a lot of good things in the community, and businesses and corporations want to partner with us now. So I'm not saying that replaces our commitment, but I like the more money that we can get from different sources, the faster we can move. And if we have a plan, we can share that out to begin to be able to try to draw those contributions in.
Thank you. Mr. Lancaster?
Oh, yeah, when you said fundraising, it rang a bell on supplies. So can we discuss this? I don't think I've gotten a question on it yet, but I think as soon as June ends or July 4th ends, we'll be back on, people will be thinking about school start back. So I know we sent something out on this supply pack or something. Can you just, I guess, when is the deadline on that? Is that for any school?
Yeah, that was a convenience for parents.
Okay.
It's all the stuff that's on the list, but it was just if you were a parent. Some parents just prefer to buy it, and you could do that. I think they'll continue to take the orders. The question is there will be a cutoff date where to have it at the first day of school. I think they'll take your order forever, but we'll have to just double check and see what the cutoff date is.
So July 6th is the cutoff date.
July
They can
6th.
guarantee it delivered by the start of school, but you can order it from them and they'll eventually deliver it. But
And does it come to the person's house or does it come to the school?
yes,
Okay.
they can pay shipping for it to be shipped directly to their house.
Okay. Obviously, I didn't read the email that well, but when you said supplies, I know we've got community fundraisers and churches and everything else are doing stuff for supplies, which is all great. I just want to make sure that I understood that part of it.
Mr. King?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. First, just to clarify, the continuation budget, and if they don't pass it on July 30th?
June 30th.
June 30th, okay.
It has to,
Because it's my understanding they're pushing it back to July 30th, or July 28th, or, it's not gonna happen this month, it's gonna happen next month, so, but if it doesn't happen June 30th, it'll be,
that information's not been shared with me.
Okay.
We almost always have a budget vote in June. As far back as the commission that I can remember,
Okay.
we've had a June budget vote, but
I watched one of the budget meetings from last week, and I heard them say that, David Walling was saying that it needs to be, I'm talking about the commission vote on the budgets have to be sometime at the end of July now. Because of, and he was saying it was because of public notice requirements and meetings and various department things that were scheduled for July. So that's what I heard.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I haven't heard that, but I'm absolutely not saying that didn't happen. I think that, I know that the commission has been having budget meetings throughout May.
Okay.
And the notifications, I know that they've had some votes in June. It seemed as if they were progressing on a normal schedule, but I don't,
Okay, so I'll just give you a heads up.
Ours is,
That's
yeah,
what I heard.
Ours is there. If they kick it to July, then we will be on continuation.
Okay, all right, well, that answers my question, yeah, because that's what I heard them say.
So I would clarify then, if we're put on hold till July, that will delay any new raises
Okay.
For employees. It will delay our ability to be able to send the $2,000 bonuses from the legislature, because as Ms. Brown said, in case, it's kind of hard to imagine, but we can't spend revenue that we haven't amended into our budget. And so this is additional revenue coming in next year's budget from the state. So we're passing the amendment tonight so that we can move as quickly as possible, because we would like to get that payroll out to our employees as fast as possible.
Well, thank you. And then one other question. Can you explain the MS plus 30, how we changed that? Because I know that there's been several, I know we were emailing about it, and
Yeah.
just so that other new board members know what occurred, and I was a little bit, I thought everybody that was MS plus 30 moved to the new scale, but apparently they're still on that, but anyone that got a plus 30 after that is now on EDS. So can you just kind of run through that?
Yeah. They wouldn't be on an EDS with a plus 30. You would have to complete a specialist program. So
Okay.
decades ago, when teacher pay scales first started being created, like in the 70s probably, let's say, late 60s, early 70s, the state came up with a pay scale that said bachelor's, master's, then they valued master's plus 30, master's plus 45, and then a doctorate, or sometimes even, I think at one point they even had a master's plus 60. Over time, most universities have shifted to a structure where they offer a master's, a specialist, or a doctorate. And so we have a handful, like I think 20 or 30 people that are on a master's plus 30. So what we did last year when we reworked all the pay scales to reduce the number of pay scales that we have, we keep a pay scale that we update each year for people that are on plus 30s currently that are legacies. So we're not taking that pay away from them. If they get an additional degree, they'll move up to whatever that is, but if they stay where they are, they will continue to receive that money, and it goes up each year just like every other teacher pay scale. But what we're not doing is offering that to new employees. If you're a new employee, you need to fall into which this is pretty much travels with every graduate school of education that you see now. It's a master's, specialist, doctorate. So, and then there are state rules about how different things translate, like if you have a Juris Doctorate versus, different things like that. That gets fairly complicated, and usually the state weighs in on how we classify that.
Thanks.
Yes. All right, next item on the agenda is new business, discussion or action regarding a lease agreement with Smith Travel. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and or action regarding the 25-26 school board meeting calendar. Do want to make one note. The next meeting, there's no study session in July. Our regularly scheduled meeting will be on July 22nd. So just kind of heads up there. Next meeting is July 22nd. Yep. You should have on board docs the most updated current version.
Yeah, we changed it out today because we realized that I would be on vacation on the 15th. And the meeting goes rough when I'm not here.
Everything revolves around Jeremy. You did know. July 22nd. So, do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Discussion. Mr. Pete.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the schedule in May, and can we get, like, another meeting, like maybe on May the 14th, like another workshop meeting, just to have another meeting for the budget. Because I've had a few conversations with board members and just felt like the last two meetings we had, for the budget, it just seemed kind of like rushed, and some information was not, like, we wish we got a little more information. So like on the 14th, can we schedule a meeting on the 14th? Like, that would be a Thursday. So the 12th is a Tuesday, the 14th would be the following Thursday, and that would just give us another meeting to kind of explore everything. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, we can, I need a motion to make that change. I think it may be better to check schedules closer to that date.
okay.
One of the things we had talked about is potentially having more of a budget workshop that's expanded beyond what, the 3 or 4 hours we have in here, whether it's offsite somewhere, more of a budget discussion, moving it up a week, so we had 2 weeks in between. So there's some conversations around that. We wanted to go ahead and get this in place. So we had it set, but I absolutely think that we can look at making some adjustments to the calendar.
So as we get closer.
As we get closer,
Okay.
yeah. And I think as we get into the new year, we start the budget discussions. I know Dr. Langford is typically presenting to us along the way, and he did this last year. I think we could kind of at that point say, okay, where are you at with the budget from a discussion standpoint? And then can we look at scheduling a budget seminar, a budget workshop? That way we have, maybe 2 study session type events before the voting session.
Okay.
Or one longer one, depending on what works best. So, does that work?
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion or action regarding reinstatement of WHS SPED assistant position using reserve funds. Do you have a motion to approve? Mr. Lacy, do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. King? All right, discussion? Ms. Purdy?
So I have a handful of questions. The first thing I want to comment, I want to remind everyone, we just went through the TSBA orientation for those of us who are new, and one of the key things that they emphasize over those 2 days on repeat is that we, as the board, are not here to make individual staffing decisions apart from the superintendent of schools. That was my no vote on this amendment. Why I voted not to discuss it is because it is not in our purview or our swim lane to make that call. I also heard quite a few things that were said today that I know to be untrue. So I wanted to take a minute, if it's all right, and ask Ms. Dam a few questions around how.
But before we go there, Mr. Langford?
No, I'd prefer it start with me.
Okay. So specifically, how often did district staff observe the classroom before making decisions, and how are those decisions made?
Yeah, let me just roll through some numbers for y'all because I think it'll help. And then if Ms. Dan wants to chime in if I miss anything, she's welcome to. I think, let me start by saying that I understand it's gut-wrenching for parents to raise kids in any way right now. It's many challenges. And I think particularly for our parents with students with special needs or students with disabilities. And so we 100%, like one of the things I think that we do exceptionally well in Sumner County is take care of our students with disabilities. We have a gold standard group of professionals. And so I echo what you said, Ms. Brennick, and I would like to clarify some things because first off, it is the director, it is my responsibility to make staffing decisions. And the reason is because I get to see the way the whole process works. And we have, like, this is not something where we sit around and 1 or 2 people make this decision, right? Like, if you take the way that a special education process works, it starts on the ground with the teacher, the special education teacher, case manager, and the principal or school LEA representative. And this IEP is put together through the work of that team with people in the building, and with support from the district, whether it's an autism consultant, whether it's someone from Ms. Herron's nursing staff. Quite often on a CDC IEP meeting, there are 12 or 13 people in the room. This is not, these decisions on IEP staffing are not made, especially for a CDC student, are not made lightly. There is a lot of thought and time. And at every step of the way, the parents and the team at the school make this decision for what best helps the child. Now, at the same time, we have 4,463 school-age special education students. We have another 275 pre-K students. And so the question then becomes, in high school, we have 160 CDC students currently. The question then becomes is, how do we allocate the teachers and teaching assistants that we have? And we look at two things. I've heard a lot about ratios, which yes, we do use ratios, but it is ratio and need or acuity. So for instance, sometimes you have a CDC class with a lot of higher functioning students that are out in classrooms a lot. Our goal on any IEP is for students to be able to live independently. Like if they're on a CDC IEP, what can we do for students to be as independent as humanly possible? So we do not. Some other districts quite often do a little bit more one-to-one than we do. In our experience, the more one-to-one you do, it sometimes prevents you from moving towards independence. There are students that absolutely need one-to-one, and where it's warranted, it is. But I think our team does a tremendous job of making those decisions in consultation with the parent, with the teacher, with the case manager, with the principal at the local school. For instance, at Westmoreland High School, we have 6 students. I was wrong. I spoke incorrectly in the email that I sent you. I thought it was 5. We had another student that we thought was leaving that decided to stay at Westmoreland. So it's 6 students, right? Last year, there were 7 students, okay? We had 1 teacher and 3 teaching assistants. This year at Westmoreland, we will have 6 students, 1 teacher, 2 teaching assistants, and a 17.5-hour TA bus driver, because we have 3 of those 6 students at Westmoreland that go out to work sites. Again, our goal is to get independence, and one of the big things that we push on the tail end of a student's time in a CDC class is getting out to work. That's 17.5 hours. It's roughly half of a school week. Now, those 3 students that go out to work sites tend to also go and audit some classes in the high school. So half their time is roughly spent on the job site or at a workplace or on a field trip or something like that. And a significant, I can't, it's different for kid by kid. I really don't want to talk about individual students. But there is time also spent out in the classroom at Westmoreland High School. So leaving the 6 students in and not factoring out that 3 are quite frequently out at worksite locations or in classrooms, Westmoreland High School has the lowest teacher to student ratio in the district. They also have the lowest teaching assistant ratio in the district, and they have a TA driver 17.5 hours a week. All right, I could show you, but again, I think Mr. King said, ratios are different based on a CDC class based on the needs of the kids. So, for instance, the teacher ratio at Westmoreland High School is 1 teacher to 6 students. It's 2 TAs. It's basically like 2 TAs, so it's a 3-to-1 ratio on teaching assistant. If you go to Gallatin High School, the teacher-pupil ratio is 9.75 and 5.57. If you go to Portland High School, it's 10.5 for the teacher ratio, it's 4.2 for the teacher. Again, there are a lot of factors that go into this. I think what's really hard for a board to do, and it's not because I don't value your input, it's not because I don't value your perspective, it's not that I don't think that, I 100%, if I were a parent with a student that had needs, I would 100% advocate for them, and I think that this is why we have a democracy. You come and speak and you ask, and then we deliberate and vote. What I'm sharing with you is what I think has been missed and has been mischaracterized is that Ms. Dam and her team, I can't even count the number of hours that they work to make sure every student is taken care of. That's here. The number of miles and hours logged by her supervisors, by her coordinators, by her consulting teachers, by her behavioral specialist, by her SLPs, by her school psychologists, by her deaf educators, by all the teaching assistants, by all the different people that we employ of our kids. They pour themselves in, but we do have to look overall at the needs of the school and the students. And we do that by looking at those IEPs and working through, and we do have great IEPs. I also 100% agree that the federal government has completely dropped the ball on supporting special education. Right? One of the things that came out last night in the budget discussion was why has the number of staff increased based on our student enrollment growth? And part of it is that as we raise salaries, which we want to do, as we raise special education, so one of the biggest accomplishments we've had over the last 2 years is that by increasing special education pay, we have 3 openings right now for special education teachers. 2 years ago, that was at like 22 at this time of year. So it's a huge difference, and that translates to better care and support for our students and support and empowerment for our parents. And it also provides a whole lot more time for the resources that we have to be even more engaged with our students. So, I just don't want that to get lost in the thing that our special education department works tirelessly to get the right number of staffing in each school location to meet the needs of the kids that are there. And again, if you look across the board at the different schools and the staffing, Westmoreland is number 1 for teacher to student ratio, number 1 for teacher assistant to student ratio, tied with White House. But again, they have some of the more challenging students, and that's the call there. But that's a call that's made by professionals that monitor this for a living, that have been doing this for a really long time to maximize the support. It's also more than just the teachers and the teacher assistants that are in the classroom. Like, we have autism specialists and consultants, we have BCBAs, we have a whole lot of different people that are in occupational therapists, physical therapists that are in these classrooms all the time to help support our teachers and staff.
So, just a point blank question, do we have the right staff for the needs and safety of this classroom?
Yes.
Great.
Ms. Stewart?
Thank you, Ms. Brennan, because I think people needed to hear this out loud, because as I said, we have been getting the emails as well and stuff, so I think it was the vote, the reason I said yes was because I think the discussion needed to be heard.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me say this, let me say this, these numbers to the point about taking care of the students, like I've said forever, when I was director of instruction and I started working with Ms. Dam in 2018, one of the things I learned is that I had to think about the 30,000 students every day, what instruction every student was getting. Ms. Dam had to think about the instruction and support these 4,463 students were getting one at a time. So it creates some tension because it's a different approach, thinking about each, I'm thinking about, do we have books and calculators and stuff like that? She's thinking about, is each individual student's needs being met times 4,463. And so I think that's a big part of this process. It's a little different than what we normally talk about. And I do want to say, I think that I agree that this is a great conversation for us to have, because I do think at the end of the day, I think the staff, I think parents want what's best for their kids. I think the teachers and support staff at Westmoreland High School want what's best for kids. I think Ms. Dam and her team do. I think we do. And it's just working through that to get to a good, and what I want to add is that you could have one child move in with needs, and that would profoundly change the amount of support based on what that student's needs were.
And so how often, if there is not another child that moves in this Westmoreland situation, how often is that reassessed? And I mean, is that like a quarterly thing? Is that like a semester thing? What is that?
Yeah, it's pretty dynamic because, I don't think there's ever a time that I can remember in the 7 years I've been up here that there's ever been a rest period for special education, trying to identify ways to meet students' needs. Like, they're shifting staffing around constantly, because you can have one child move from Walton Ferry to Lakeside Park, and you have to move, or even this year we had a student we had a a sign language specialist that had been with a child for years, and that child graduated, so we didn't have anybody that had that need, and that's that leads to some changes in our staffing.
Okay, one more question. So on the days that the students that are out for work sessions or whatever they're in, the ratio goes up for those ones that are left there. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that's 3 days a week.
Well, it's 17 and a half hours a week,
Okay.
plus time that they're, 17 and a half, you've got roughly about 35 hours in a school week, and then, so if you think 17 and a half is roughly about half of that time, and then in addition to that, some of the time, they'll be out in other classes, or, if you're in a high school, if there's a pep rally, our CDC kids are generally always right there in the center of that, so.
Mr. Hollis?
Thank you for the clarification. My question, I've heard several people reference or allude to exposure liability. Is this situation, are we exposed in this situation to any degree?
No, I mean, I think the thing is that I think the beauty of, if you watch our special education team work, is that they're engaged constantly. There are very few special ed case managers that aren't talking to parents multiple times in a week. And that's why, when there's changes, there's, because they really do become like family. So there's constant there. I think the thing that make, and I think the hard part for our special ed team is not to get, and I think this happens a lot around the country, is you can fall into special education becoming just compliance. Are we meeting the letter of the law? Are we at risk of being sued? Are we taking on too much liability? The reality is that I think what our team does so well is they know the law, they follow the law, and then they do everything within their power to meet the students' needs and to support parents. And I think at the end of the day, when you do that, what's been shown over many years is that when we do that, when we do have lawsuits, when we do have things like that, usually we come out on top, or it's something where it's like, we need to do some service hours, or we need to do some training or something like that. And sometimes it's just because we're all learning as we go. I would say, for instance, some of the stuff that we're learning about behavior right now is a learn as we go, because no one in the country's ever dealt with this before, and we're kind of on the front edge of it, of trying to find new and innovative ways to address it. But no, I mean, the thing is like, do you have good IEPs? Like, I don't want to speak ill of other districts, but sometimes we get students from other districts and every IEP looks the same because it's been cut and pasted. You don't see that with ours, because you see that each one is made for that individual student. So that's one of the checks in terms of liability. Do you have the proper staffing? Do they have the proper training? I think our team does a tremendous job with that, so I think we're good.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, so going back to the assistants that of course, what originally came out or was said is that we fired an assistant. Do we actually fire an assistant, or do we just say, hey, is that assistant given other opportunities within the district for assistant position? Because what I'm hearing from Ms., I think it was Ms. Dammer, one was we have 3 openings, and I know how hard it is, or has been, how hard it is to get special education assistants. So I'm definitely hoping that we didn't actually fire somebody or.
Yeah. So part of the reason in doing this earlier is to give, sometimes you'll have, like, for instance, it depends on where the school is. Like, sometimes you'll have like a CDC resource assistant and a resource assistant, and you'll lose one and you can move that one into the other position. It's really like, that part's like a school level decision. It's a principal level decision if you have an opening. If you don't have an opening is where it gets dicey, and so we usually do a reduction in force with classified employees. And the reason being, that's the reason that we try to do it early, is because if you have, say, for instance, 3 that you're losing across the district, and you're not moving them into another position in the school because the principal wants to keep that person, which does happen quite frequently. It's hard to say what's fair if you're the principal of a different school. What's fair to you, to best for your school, is to say you have to take this person from this other school because we don't have the need here, or here are 3 from different schools, interview and take one and then the other two. So the easiest, the fairest way in those scenarios is to do the reduction in force, and we try to do that as early as possible so that they can pick where they want to be. I mean, you know, we had a position open at Westmoreland Elementary until last week. So there are jobs open in the area.
So the other question, other question I would have is, having, had to deal with budgeting for positions in different jobs in my past, there's been times when I've said, hey, I think this is the staffing needs at this location, and 2 months down the road, I was like, well, I was wrong. I need somebody else.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how quickly can we evaluate once school starts and make a change if needed?
Yeah.
I know we've got 3 openings now. What's our current, not turnover, but hiring, onboarding, or whatever? How long are these jobs staying?
I could get Mr. Ott to get you an answer on that. We have to do a little bit of research. I would say, like, before we increased pay by the $4 an hour with 2 steps this year, I think, sometimes those jobs were staying open 170, 180 days. It's much faster now just because we're getting a lot more applicants. Like, I think I shared one from, I believe it was Walton Ferry, in the slide deck on budget. We had like 14 applicants, where 2 years ago we had 3. Station Camp Elementary, I'm sorry. We had like 2 or 3 last time. We had 14 or 18 this time. If you had the applicants, our principals turn these around pretty quickly. It's about a 5 to 7 day window. We do have to run a background check before we can put anybody in, and that's good. We want to continue to do that. But now that we do our fingerprinting and everything in house, we're able to move a lot faster to turn around. And then it's really just getting up here to do their orientation, pick their benefits, that kind of stuff, and then go to the school and start training. So, all told, I mean, it's probably 2.5 weeks from the time the job is posted, presuming that there's applicants, and obviously there's not applicants all the time immediately, but I would say compared to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it's probably 2 or 3 times faster. But yeah, we do look continuously. If students have needs, we try to add those positions. Or sometimes if it's during the year, if you have one of those that you referenced where it's like, shoot, I thought I was going to have a need here, and now the need's over here, we do move people at times from one place to the other. It's usually like if we know that there's a demonstrated need. We try not to do that because a lot of times, if you signed on to teach at Beach Elementary or to be a teaching assistant at Beach Elementary, you may not want to go to Portland East. So we try to take into account, that would probably be one where we would hire, and we would look at that at the end of that year.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, kind of just to piggyback off of that just a little bit. With the reduction in force, do you have to reorient or do orientation again if they were to accept another position, reapply and accept another position?
So in a reduction in force, we go with the last one hired is the first one out, and then we make them aware that they can absolutely apply other places. So they've already got a track record.
So,
we can recommend them. So that's how a reduction in force would happen. And then a person who has, if they have been within the year processed, they should be able to get processed quickly.
So, like, if they get hired, Mr. Ott, correct me if I'm wrong, like if they're reduced in, say, March, and they get hired in March, April, May, if there's not a break, right, they don't have to go back through fingerprinting.
That's correct.
So, like, if they finished up in May, got hired before the end of school, then they could go on and, they wouldn't have to redo fingerprinting.
That would help onboarding.
If it goes past July 1, our policy has been that if there's a break into a new year, then we just recheck because, again, we would rather go through the extra time to make sure that something hasn't happened in that gap, that we need to be aware of in terms of safety of our kids.
But theoretically, it wouldn't be that much of an onboarding for somebody that's already still in our system. Yeah, that's
right. Unless something's
correct
happened.
All right. Secondly, I wanted to make sure there's not any like state funding tied to being in compliance regarding like any. And I know we talked about ratios, but I'm making sure from a state perspective, like is there a compliance or anything that's tied financially to being under a ratio or anything like that at the state level?
I mean, there is on classroom sizes and things like that, but you can't put a ratio like that on special education.
Well,
'cause
but I'm
it's
saying,
based-
but funding. So, like, do we receive any state funding for these programs that is tied to any ratio?
TISA is tied to the student, not to the ratio.
Okay.
Now, there are state laws that govern things like classroom size in like first grade or seventh grade.
Okay.
But they can't put a ratio on special education because it's tied to the individual needs of the student.
Okay, that was one of them. The only thing, just for clarification, is there any type of precedent for this? Like I know, like we've been on here since September. We've not obviously had a conversation about employees. So what I'm asking is, during your time, I mean, is there any precedent for this from a discussion standpoint?
I don't remember us ever discussing personnel. That's usually the purview of the director of schools.
Mr. King?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, can you read back the motion as worded?
Yes, sir. Actually, just got a thing from Mr. Lacy, so I've updated it. It is discussion and interaction regarding the reinstatement of the Westmoreland High School Assistant Sped, or hang on, let me take another run at this because I got lost. So, it is discussion and interaction regarding reinstatement of the White House Sped Assistant position using reserve funds. Westmoreland, I'm sorry. I saw WH and it threw me.
Okay. So it says position, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I just want to respond to what Ms. Breinig said. I agree. TSBA, what they tell us is it's not our place to get involved with staffing decisions, but there's a difference between creating positions and staffing them. So the board does have, it is within our purview to, should we think necessary, create a position and vote on that in however now staffing it is up to the discretion of the director, and I think that is the TSBA's. I mean, surely they wouldn't say you can't go to the school board and say, hey, I think we need to create this position, and then the board vote. That's not what they mean. We can do that. This is a reinstating a position. Our board policy says, quote, the authorization of all school positions rests with the board. And then it distinguishes between that and what the director's responsibility is. Employment authorization shall be within the discretion of the director of schools. So it's within our authorization on positions. Staffing those positions is at the discretion of the director. So I don't think we're in violation of the TSBA's philosophy on what is our proper etiquette and decorum when it comes to this situation. So what we're doing is the motion is to reinstate the position there. Now how it's filled, whether it's the former person or not, that's not what we're voting on. That's not what we're trying to decide. It's not up to us. That's not what I think is the motion. The motion is about the position, and we do have within our ability and right and according to board policy to reinstate that position. Now, I want to offer a couple of things to think about with these three students. So the two of the students have written in their IEPs.
Point of order.
Yep.
That
Ms.
is
Brady.
student privacy information and confidentiality and would not be appropriate to share in this space.
I'm not mentioning the individual who they are.
Yeah, you get the Student Privacy Acts. I'd be careful in how you phrase what you're sharing.
Okay. How about this? Not all of the students have one-on-one in their IEPs, okay? Not all of the students have written in their IEPs that it has to be within that they have to be within an arm's length of an adult at all times, not all of them. And when the decision was made to not write all that in the IEP, it's my understanding that the reasoning behind that was because the SPED coordinator that was there told the team, the IEP team, that that there was adequate staffing, so it didn't need to be written in because of that, because there was adequate staffing. So that was it. They had those 3 students covered. You know, 2 of them had it as part of their thing, and 1 didn't. So but they were covered. It was staffed. Now, then they got the rug pulled out from under them, and were told that they were going to be removing this position, and they were told that they were confident that there would be enough, that it would be enough to meet the needs of the students, but there was really never any basis given for that. You know, when I'm thinking about this now, we have I attended an IEP meeting a few weeks ago, and it was very thorough, and there were quite a few people in the room, but that does not mean that their decision or how they determine those decisions is perfect. And in this situation, I'm going to have to go with the parents, teachers, administrators that are on the front line here with these students on a daily basis. And what I'm hearing is that you can't, that these 3 students require an adult at all times. If you send 2 of those aides out, you leave the teacher in there with 2 students that are unpredictable, they are a danger and a risk to themselves and others, they will not be within an arm's length of an adult, as required by an IEP, by their IEP. Unless that teacher goes and gives up everything she's doing in terms of instruction time, gives that up in order to service the students in this way. And so by removing the position, we are putting an undue burden on that teacher, in my opinion. Because now she's going to have more on her plate. She's going to have to accommodate these students. Without aides, she's going to be in charge of 2 students, not just 1, but 2, who have severe disabilities, and they could run off. They could do what I said earlier. They could stab themselves with a pencil. They could swallow something. They could run off and leave the building and get outside. It's called eloping, and it's from what I understand, these all have that issue. So I just think that if we don't have a 3rd body in the room, a 3rd aide helping in this situation, it just really there's potential risk there. And to me, it's not a matter of if it happens; it's a matter of when it happens, because 2 of those aides go out to help 1 student in the bathroom. Teacher's left in there. You have 2 volatile students, severely disabled, that need one-on-one assistance, but then you have these other students that are special ed, but they need help too. And it's like Murphy's Law, anything that can happen will happen. I just feel like we need that 3rd body in there, or it's going to be we're going to end up in a situation at risk and liable. I'd hate for a child to run out the room and run off, go out the front door or something. I'd hate for a child to get stabbed in an eye because there wasn't enough staff there. And to me, I'm going to err on the side of caution here. I just feel more supervision is better than less. And I'm going to side on the side of people that are close to the situation. I understand we have a great SPED team. But they're not there every day. They're there occasionally. And I think we need to, in this case, I think we need to listen to the parents, the teachers, the principal, who are telling me, who have told me, we desperately need that third person. So, again, you're not voting, if you vote for this, it is within your purview to vote for this. You're not making a staffing decision, we're just adding a position.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, two questions that kind of good. I'm gonna two questions. What was our reduction and I asked this from for the county, how many did we reduce?
Well, we have several reductions all over the county.
But,
At
yeah.
the high school level, I think we
Here,
reduced.
I've got it. We reduced 1 TA at Westmoreland, 2 at Gallatin, and a sign language interpreter. We reduced 1 teacher at Portland, 2 TAs at Beach, but then we also added in other places where the needs are.
Okay.
And I would also like to clarify that, we don't have a special ed team at the district and a separate team at the school. This is all work together, because the way an IEP works, it's an individualized education plan. So it's vital that the parents buy in. At the end of that plan, you sign off on it as the parent, you sign off on it as the teacher, as the special education teacher, as the principal or LEA representative. There are a lot of fingerprints on that plan. At any point that a parent feels like their child has additional needs, they can request a meeting, and by law, we have that meeting within 10 days. So this is a very collaborative, ongoing, detailed process. It's not like it's being portrayed as if there's a special education district team that parachutes in and makes these arbitrary decisions, and then a school team, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So I don't think that's and so and to your point, Mr. Evans, to back up, we do move people around because it's completely dependent on it's different than anything else we do.
I understand that. My second question to back that up, or just to parallel with that, Ms. Brown, if you don't mind, do you know what the fully loaded cost is of an assistant at this level?
It depends on their experience level.
Okay.
I can pull you a range that would apply.
Yeah.
Well,
And if they take insurance.
Okay. Well, why don't you just pull the pay range for a CDC teaching assistant?
CDC.
That's what. So yeah, because I'm trying to figure out how to make an amendment to this. I feel like it would be hearing everything from a safety perspective. My thought would be setting aside, figuring out what that cost would be for us to have this money set aside. I'm not saying we're adding it right now. I'm saying if we were to have to add it, because you're saying right now it's not just one school. We've had to move some people around. There's been
I didn't. No,
you've had a reduction in force in multiple places.
Right, because we're moving people where the needs are. Not okay.
So my question is, this is like a safety net for us. In the event if we get to October and it's determined that we need to add a position to any of these schools, we have money set aside to initiate it and fund it.
Right. That's just not the way that we've ever budgeted. And again, I can't, like Mr. Hollis asked me earlier about liability that we're taking on. The most liability that we are taking on is by having a public conversation about an individual student that we could very easily pinpoint who it is. That's the most liability that we're taking on as a board. And this is why I can't emphasize this enough. I'm not saying this because I feel like I need to be in control of everything. I'm absolutely not saying that. But you're going down a road where you are moving into making decisions from the board about individualized needs for kids based on their needs and IEP team decisions that we have an extensively long track record of deciding. But what I'm saying, Mr. Evans, is
I didn't identify anything. I didn't pick a school. I didn't pick a student. I'm just saying in general, just having it there where if it was determined it was needed by you and your staff, we had that money set aside. That's all. That's what I was.
Right.
I didn't pick a specific school.
No, I wasn't referring to you.
Okay.
What I'm saying though is the conversation that led up to this does put us in harm's way in terms of liability. What I would say to your request is that we add positions all the time, and if we need to amend money in to cover it, I think that's the way we've always done it. Is if we need to amend money to cover additional positions. It's just more, it's better budgeting to do it that way than to say we're going to put this money here, not knowing whether or not we need it.
Mr. Hollis?
I was kind of just thinking, just generally, it sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, the need would be minutes of, so we got half the time, we've got the 3 students with the three one-on-one, and then throughout the day, maybe one student needs to go to the restroom for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so that's the need, is that window. What would be a compromise or something where, I mean, could you pull a flex someone from the main office to come and say, hey, you know, we need you for 10 minutes, can you help us out, as opposed to hiring a person that is sitting around, you know, an extra person that's not being utilized full time, and you've got a full time.
So I think what's hard, if you haven't been in a CDC classroom, is that they do a staffing plan.
Okay.
And they schedule the entire day, and they have areas where they work. They spend an extensive amount of time training, and they have a CDC consulting teacher that comes in from the district to work with, like if there's a new teacher, a new teaching assistant, they go through, they look at the data whenever they have an IEP meeting, or just regular staffing meetings based on what they're seeing in, like in this case, all 6 kids together, and they make those decisions. And then what they do is then they go in, and sometimes that, you know, it's just something easy where it's like, hey, we need 5 minutes here, we're going to rotate this around so that's covered. Sometimes if it's more profound, or generally what would happen where the district consulting teacher is, if a kid's struggling to be successful in the classroom, the consulting teacher would come in for a week or two and watch and help them reframe that staffing plan. Because if you go in a CDC classroom, it's not like like a small English class or something like that. Like they're moving, like one kid is working on this, another kid's working on this, and then they rotate, and different assistants do different things. So, you know, they're doing all this because this is what they do professionally, and they understand, you know, the time that it takes to take a kid to the bathroom. If there's a diaper change, sometimes, you know, it involves the nurse because the nurse has to come in if it requires some catheter or something like that. I'd like to speak more generally instead of just at the Westmoreland, since I think we're getting a little close to the ground there. But, you know, in general, like any CDC class to go to Sumner County, you would see that. There's a tremendous amount of work that's put in by our CDC team with support from the district and the school.
So you're basically saying that all school, these nuances are considered regularly with the staff?
Yes.
Ms. Breen?
So I just want to go back to the question that I asked earlier to Dr. Langford or Ms. Dam. What I heard is that IEPs are being followed and that we have staffed this classroom appropriately for the safety of students, recognizing the need in the classroom. So we're saying that our classroom is safe and staffed appropriately. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Recognizing that we've said a lot more than should be said in a school board meeting, I'm going to call the question.
Okay, call the question. Basically this will end discussion, so questions have been called. So,
May I ask one question?
yeah, well, we've got to vote on it. These questions have been called, so.
There's things to discuss.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. King. Question's been called. We're going to vote on whether to move on. If the board chooses to continue to discuss, we can continue to discuss. So, Mr. Johnson, roll call vote.
May I comment on to the board
Yes, sir.
on why I would like to ask the question before they vote?
Let's vote first, then we'll circle back.
Okay, this is the motion to call the question. Ms. Hayes.
And read what that actually.
So it's a motion to call the question, which means you're voting to vote. You're voting to move
Stop.
on and vote and stop debate, or
Yes, let's
you're,
vote.
okay, all right. So Ms. Hayes votes yes. Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Lancaster? Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. Hollis?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Lacy?
No.
Chairman Daniels.
No.
Motion carries 6-5.
All right, then let's go ahead and vote. All right, can you please repeat the motion on the floor?
Yes, sir. I've got it where I can read it better now. So discuss under action regarding reinstatement of Westmoreland High School SPED assistant position and to allocate reserve funds to cover that position for the 25-26 school year.
And to clarify, a yes vote is to,
A yes vote is to approve it. A no vote is to reject it.
thank you.
And with that, Ms. Hayes.
No.
Ms. Tucker.
No.
Mr. Lancaster.
I had something that I had asked, but I guess abstain. I don't have enough information.
Mr. Edison.
No.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Hollis.
No.
Ms. Brennan.
No.
Ms. Stewart.
No.
Ms. Barnes. Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
Chairman Daniels.
No.
Motion fails.
All right, next item on the agenda is unfinished business discussion or action regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Do you have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do you have a second? Second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion or action regarding amendments to the federal budget. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
I've got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session item. Mr. Johnson.
As you approved in your schedule, we will not have a study session until August. We will have a July 22nd meeting that will probably be, hey, yay, let's make some policies that comply with state law. So you'll probably see, I'm sure all of you got the email from TSBA that where there's some pass-through policies we'll look at. Those will probably be making an appearance on your July meeting. If anybody's got anything they'd like us to talk about in August, yeah, let us know.
I got a question. When does the
Yes, sir.
policy on the student board member, whatever that, I thought it had to be done by August 1st.
Let me check that. That may be part of our July meeting. We may have to adopt the, I want to wind up discussing the TSBA policy and then you guys amending it after that, but that's something we can discuss. If that's what we need to do, we can
I'm
talk about
hoping
that in
it's
July
not, 'cause I
meeting.
think we're gonna need a study session to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I really thought it had to be done by August. I thought I read that.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
I'm hoping I'm wrong.
But I'll check it out and we'll reach out to the SBA and I'll know more about it tomorrow.
If not, can we make that on the, oh, because that's gonna be a fun exercise in trying to figure out how to follow that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
That's it for me.
All right. Sorry. Let's go to comments from the board. Start with Mr. Lacy.
Well, like I said, thank you for the board members who voted to allow this mother to speak and for this to be on the agenda. But, you know, I would have asked Ms. Dam, you know, if you have an IEP, if you had 6 students or 3 students that had an IEP and all 3 students require 1-to-1 care ratio, how do you do that with 3, 1 teacher and 2 assistants? How do you do that? Can that even be done? We weren't allowed to ask that question tonight because someone called the question. But like I said, it was a miracle that we were able to debate and to discuss this. You know, I'm just kind of astonished. You know, I ran for the board to try to help people to fight for students, teachers. I don't think the teachers in our county feel very loved from the school board. We cut a lot of positions. We set aside $25,000 for the director's potential raises. There's nothing wrong with getting a raise. It's a 10% raise if the board, whenever we decide to renew his contract and we propose what kind of raise we're going to give him, but we've allotted a 10% raise to the director of schools. That's one position. This one position that was cut in Westmoreland, maybe at tops, was $26,000 a year, maybe. And like I said, that could have been the director's raise. We've had probably at least 10 positions in central office that have been bumped up probably to making new positions over $100,000 a year. 3 or 4 of them are going to be bumped up to $150,000 a year. And that we're cutting positions where the kids are at to fund these big positions up here in the central office. Why did you run for school board? Did you run just to say yes to everything? I mean, it's like whatever the director recommends, we're here just to say yes. There was one board member at District 1, you were smiling while Mr. King was talking the whole time. Are we here for the citizens and the students? Why are we here? Why did you run? Did you run to make a difference, or did you run just to be a part of a clique and a part of a game and have friends? I mean, I wish, like I said, I talked to a teacher today and they really don't feel like we care about them. And what shows is where you put your money, and that's in central office.
Let's switch topics a little bit. I had a community members that's been supported actually also by Dr. Woods, and they want to, and I think I understand that this has to go through a vote, but they want to name a athletic facility in honor of someone that's been a pillar in the community, supported the program for many years. So I'd like to add that to the next agenda. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions, we would feel free to reach out to me. We're trying to keep it under wraps until we can, so that it'll be a special recognition for this person. One other, just with the move and the change to the July 22nd meeting, I try to always tell as quick as possible. I will not be, I'm traveling, so I try to arrange my travel arrangements around the board schedule. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ms. Brittany?
I want to take a minute, so we didn't get a chance to talk about this in June, but I want to recognize the new award that is coming out of White House Middle School. They've created a new award for this past year that recognizes one person who represents someone who is selfless and gives themselves to their organization at all time. And it's called the Ted Wise Volunteer Award, because Mr. Wise spent 16 years giving of himself in this position right here, to his community and to his county, doing it for the children, which is, I think, what each one of us is up here for. So I want to recognize Miss Izzy Hampton for being the first recipient of the Ted Wise Volunteer Award. And I hope that each one of us takes that to heart, that we're here to be selfless and to give of ourselves to this organization at all times. So I'm very excited that I was able to be there the first time that award was announced and given out. And think it's exactly named correctly. I also would like to just recognize that sometimes as women, we get told to smile or not smile because of someone else's opinion of what we should be doing or thinking. And it's not about that. It's about you sitting up here and giving your service. And I thank you for the work that you do and the dedication you've shown to our community.
Mr. Hollis? Mr. King? Mr. Evans? Two things. One, to piggyback off of that, I've said this before, even when we have these contentious conversations, heated, whatever, I still challenge any of us up here to get to know each other's hearts. And regardless if you agree with their heart, you can at least sit across them and know, while we serve up here, and some of us still have time, up until next time elections, everything like that. I just challenge you to do that. I think I've done that with some of you. I've even extended time to spend time with you. I think that's still at the core of this. When we come here, we represent our constituents. I do wish we would have let Mr. Lacey talk, because he does represent the school that was in question. So I hate that didn't happen. At the same time, I know that we needed to have, I think this is a tough conversation. Obviously it's going to be online, so I'm sure we'll get some pushback from our community, and we should. I mean, it's tough. This group is not the most educated in these subjects. We represent our constituents, and we have to, part of that is going back to the public and talking to them and getting their perspective and bringing that here. So Secondly, yeah, I'm having my second daughter on Saturday, so let's go. A little positive, but just prayers for my wife, my 4-year-old daughter, and also my soon-to-be born daughter. So I thank you for all your notes, everything like that, and I appreciate the tough conversation. I think that's part of what I know that's what I signed up for, and I know that there's gonna be times we have to do this. So I still think it's good, even if it's bumpy and if it's not perfect and it's not pretty. I still think that's what a board should be doing, is having tough conversations. I think that makes us stronger as a board. It makes us stronger as board members. I think that only, like I said, pressure. What's the term? Pressure makes diamonds. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, well, Mr. Evans kind of stole my thunder. I was gonna, but I'm glad that you did, because I didn't know if you wanted me to say, praying for his wife this week.
I think I might have to call your buddy Joe and get some tips on going to man defense. I've been in zone defense for a long time, so I got to go to man-to-man defense.
As a slightly older person that has gone through having 2 daughters,
It's easy.
Yeah. Just wait till if you get a boy, man, that's when it really goes crazy. But good luck and best wishes to your wife, because now she's got 3 kids to put up with. Other than that, I am glad this parent got to speak on this. It's a tough issue. I don't know that I would have been supportive of the motion as presented. I was trying to figure a way to amend to do something there. The issue I had with the motion as presented is I just don't want us to get into a point where anytime somebody thinks that something's wrong at an individual school, they come and we vote to add a position or to take whatever. That's just not what we ideally need to do. At the same time, we also don't need to just disregard. I'm not saying anybody did it, so that's why I'm glad we did discuss this issue. And I do believe if it gets to the point where we need to do something there, the people in charge see that we need to do something there. We do have the money in our budget or in our reserves to make that happen, and that was really my question follow-up to that. So thanks.
Ms. Tucker?
Thank you. As Ms. Hayes knows, I do have a couple of disabled family members, and so this does touch my heart. And so it's tough, and when we have to make these tough decisions, whether it's monetarily or individually, I appreciate everyone's thoughts on that. And on a lighter note, I'm very excited about the Hendersonville Football Stadium. As I mentioned last time, I get to watch it every day as I come in and out of our office, and it's just amazing, and I'm so excited and can't wait for it to be complete.
Ms. Hayes?
Thank you, Chairman. I was debating on whether I was going to say anything or not. Because part of me feels like I don't need to have to qualify. I get told I get smiled a lot, Mr. Lacey. As a former special ed teacher, and the reason I voted no was because speaking on special ed issues, SPED students, in a public forum is tricky. I feel like we have been brought into an IEP meeting that we have no business being in. I've sat in IEP meetings. When I have had issues with, in my district, SPED parents, I go straight to Norma. We have conversations. I have talked to the teachers. That is their job. The SPED teacher, the administrator at that school, the district level professionals who do this day in and day out. She knows the law. So I guess I come from a place of trusting, but verifying, I'll ask the questions. What normally can tell me. I don't need to know, because there is law. These children are a protected people. Yes, the mother could say what she wanted to say about her child, but we have been brought in to an IEP meeting. I've known Norma a long time. I know that she's going to do everything that she can, and so will Miss Daniel, to meet the needs. And after this, I can have individual conversations and ask, did Miss Stevenson ask for the IEP update? Because by law, you got 10 days to pull this together, to let her complain or state her reasons. This is something that needs to be decided here. That is why I have a background in this. We don't need to be discussing this. There's the liability. I want that every child have an exemplary educational experience. And I believe that this county does that. Nationally recognized. We do it well. So, I appreciate you all. For 11 years, I've thrown this board. Got one more. I guess we can talk about this individually later if anybody wants to get together, but y'all have a blessed evening.
Thank you. I'll just kind of wrap up tonight. We have been on board a long time. We've had a lot of continuous meetings with this board, with other boards, whether it's zoning, whether it's voting on budgets, whether it's issues like this. If you look around the country right now, it's pretty easy to see what's going on. You have two sides trying to tear each other apart for what they believe, what they think, how they act, what they say, how they look. And we bring that into this board. We're family as citizens. Our job is to represent the students and give them the best education possible. I think as board members, we do that very, very well. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be issues that get brought up that we have to discuss. But it's important that, when we make a vote, when we make a decision, whether we disagree with the way that decision went, that we continue to respect each other and treat each other with respect. If we can't do that, then we don't need to be on this board. Period. If you have a problem with the way someone smiles, please direct that to me. If you have a problem with the way someone speaks, if you have a problem with the way someone makes a motion, my job is to run the meeting. I'm sorry if individuals didn't get to speak tonight. Multiple people spoke multiple times and had the opportunity to chime in. So I'm sorry. Somebody made a motion, we voted on it, and we moved on. We have to accept that. At the end of the day, we're all here doing the same thing, trying to serve our community to the best of our ability. And I ask that you treat each other with respect they deserve. It's not an easy job. And if you can't do that, then maybe you need to step down. And with that, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.